But obviously, the main thing here to me is, I don't think this would even be happening if it wasn't for this drama around the leave, guys. So, Jensen, just give me some initial thoughts, right? Right. One thing I think is very misunderstood in the West is, and I'm going to have my own thoughts on this as well, and some things I know about Korea and China, but I wanted to just ask in terms of like culturally, what would you say? Why is this a famous, consistent thing that every couple of years plagues one or two LPL players? Could be Name back in the day. There was, funny enough, it's all fucking ADCs apparently. Huafeng, the guy from Suning, they've all had the same story where it's like, well, in their cases, it was often fangirls, is what it was termed as, they're being a bit too like promiscuous or whatever. Or, as far as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the main issue here? It's not the idea that they're like sleeping with people or being, it's the idea that because it becomes public, you've sort of like shamed the organ somewhere, or you've like made a fool of yourself. Is it something along these lines, like some Confucian angle?
I definitely say that there's an element of that, right? So we talk about face, or we talk about there's this sense of like the term for it is face. I'm not sure if that's the best translation of it.
Yeah,
but there's
or like honor or something, right?
Reputation, right? There's an inherent reputation that you need to uphold for the team and for yourself. And because it's a more collectivist culture, if somebody within your community does something, it is then seen as shameful to a certain extent. So Confucian cultures, they tend to be very shame cultures in general. When it comes to these style things, it definitely impacts things in a way, and that there is that element of like, okay, has this person brought disrepute to the organization? Has this person brought disrepute to the fans? And I think that this is something that's been discussed before, that a lot of these fans also, they vicariously extend and project themselves upon the players in the teams. So
they have like the K-pop vibe, right, where they're superstars and stuff.
Yeah, so when something like that happens, it definitely does take a hit to the reputation and the overall and put some shame onto EDG. But I don't really think that that's the big thing over here, because when it comes to scandals like that, I think that usually applies more to the corporate world, where you have a lot of the older folks like sitting around and stuff like that. But at the esports level, I think it's just more drama for the drama machine. It's going to go in, it's going to come out, and once Uzi starts playing, if they start winning, people are going to forget about who this leave guy was. It's going to be a little footnote that, oh, do you know that EDG had this player, he played for one split, and then he got into trouble for doing these style things as well. I mean, with the whole thing and all the leaks and things like that happening as well, you actually have to wonder how much of this is also
this might also be the smoke screen if you wanted to replace him anyway with Uzi I. Is that also an angle you're thinking of?
Yeah, so that might be something that's happening, right? Because when we talk about players behaving in promiscuous manners and going around and I mean, I've known, I don't know.
There's loads of stories behind the scenes out there. They just don't come out sometimes.
Yes, but you know the stories. There are players, there are staff out there who are generally more promiscuous in general, and it just takes like, it's just that this person he got caught. I won't even say he got caught. It's just that it became public information that this person has been going around and liking those photos and engaging in these activities as well.
By the way, just as an aside, I do just love the angle I hadn't even thought of that angle, that this could be some like pure House of Cards like shit of like, wait a minute, the phone call's coming from inside the house. It's just like someone like release the photos and the videotape, like that is actually gangster if that's the way you replace the player. But the other angle I was going to say was this, right? And I'll be very careful how I phrase this, because particularly I don't want to get Jensen into trouble. I hope he has a long career and life and potentially coaches, who knows, maybe the LPL one day. I'll just phrase it like this. And if it was on Something Insight, I'd go a lot harder. So I'll phrase it very carefully. If, let's say, there was someone in a culture like China, I know particularly in Korea, this has happened before. I'm going to be really careful how I phrase this. Basically, I've heard there are players and sometimes even coaching staff's involved in this. That's why I'll just say occasionally, sometimes. And it's almost like for example, in Korean StarCraft, this is even back in the day, the whole angle I was told, and I've been to Korea and I've seen this, was like that element of society, the idea of like the bathhouse or whatever, it does exist and everyone knows it exists. But it's more like, no one speaks about it is the point. Like, and technically those places don't exist. Like in theory, that really is just a place you go and the person gives you a shower or something. That's like the official front. Also, it's not like a thing with like, it's not like Vegas. It's not like a big arrow, like come here, like neon signs. It's more like it's a door that you have to know that place and go there and possibly even know like someone there to call it. Oh, we're going to come at this time, and you go in and it's a whole thing basically. And so I heard of it first in Korean StarCraft, because believe it or not, I heard there were actually teams or coaches where the premise was like, their players really did just play games like 16 hours a day and then play tournaments and never have a day off. So that was essentially like their sort of like occasionally like extracurricular activity, as it were, like they would just take them there. That would be what happened. And then it was sort of just a not spoken about thing. So to me, it reminds me of the whole match fixing angle. It's like everyone pretends it doesn't happen. But as a result, if you get caught, they have to go hard as fuck at you because that's to make up for the fact it's not supposed to happen. And so what I basically heard is something similar. Like, if people don't know, the Chinese version, as far as I know, is even stuff like they have those like karaoke places, which I've been to myself, and I've just go there with my friends when we're at events, and you book the room out and you have the thing. But there would always be loads of girls there, and I'd always be like, who are they? Why is there like a massive load of girls? And someone would tell me, oh, they're people that you could just, you could just invite them to come and have a drink with you. And now, listen, if you're from West, you might immediately go, whoa, and what do they do? And it's like, no, some of them really are. They're just going to come and have a drink with you and sing the karaoke. It's actually like sort of what they do. Part of it's obviously, I assume, they probably get commission and they help sell the drinks and stuff. But as far as I can tell, obviously, imagine if one of those people then had a mindset where they wanted to engage in something else. That's essentially where, using subtlety, they could convey that message. So basically, as far as I know, it's like Jensen says, there's been stories like this, that, especially behind the scenes within the circuits. People know who does this stuff and who doesn't. And it's not everyone. There's a few people. The problem, like I say here, to me, it's more the idea that this is public now, which obviously does lead to the idea of why is it public, which is an interesting angle. So to me, it's actually not as big a scandal as it initially seems. And by the way, it isn't only Asia that does this. Like, I'll give you a random example. I've actually had a similar thing happen in Germany in esports. They also had a thing where I'm sure on paper it's all totally legal, but there's people who were sort of like, oh yeah, that's like the place over there that you go to. Like, and the business guy just knows that. And it's sort of like one of those things where like the ones that do it know it and the others know it exists, but no one's supposed to acknowledge it exists. So it's not actually that big a deal. My bigger issue, I want to ask you about, Dom, is what do you think about that idea? Because Leave was supposed to be one of like the fucking breakout players last split. Like, this is a person, maybe, I mean, there was even that comment, which now seems fortuitous, from fucking Uzi, where he basically said if you leave girls alone for 3 years, you'd be like the best player in the world. So what do you think about the idea of like him actually getting bombed out and Uzi coming in?
Well, I just don't feel like it would be intentional because Leave showed so much promise, and Uzi, the last time he was playing in LPL, it did not go well. Like that BLG stint last year, I was not impressed.
People have deleted that from their minds, haven't they? They don't even know who's in that team, mate.
Yeah, he was in BLG. Like, that was the whole thing. It was him and Doggo competing for the spot, and I just wasn't very impressed with the way he played. So I just feel like when Leave had, I mean, obviously he has bad games here and there, but he's been a super fire rookie. When the comparison is, him and Pays, and those are like the two best rookie AD carries like in the world. Those are the new talents. I just don't see like them wanting to replace him, even if he has like a bad stint. He had like a couple bad games. He had a really awful Neela game for sure, but I think you could write that off as just play normal AD carries again. Like maybe you're just not the Neela player. That's a different style champion than most people would normally play. So, or the more traditional AD carries would normally play. So that's kind of my take on it. I feel like this was something that they just have to replace him because of the fact that what's being rumored or something illegal. And yeah, I mean, we'll see if he ends up potentially coming back, what the deal is. I mean, Uzi at this point is not even officially signed yet, so we have to see if that actually is the signing or if it's just a rumor. But I think it's pretty unfortunate because, he looked really promising, and he should have just listened to Uzi.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.